The contact appears at 7:22 p.m. as a green symbol. In the tactical display language of the carrier strike group's collective air picture, green means friendly. It means the contact has responded correctly to the interrogation pulse transmitted by the formation's IFF, identification friend or foe, system with a valid Mode 5 cryptographic reply that matches the current day's authentication codes. The green symbol means, "This is one of ours." The operator looking at it doesn't look again. He is tracking 34 other contacts simultaneously in an air environment that has been running at sustained high intensity for 6 days. A green symbol is resolved. It is filed. It is no longer a problem. The contact is on a bearing of 047 degrees, range 61 nautical miles from the Lincoln, altitude 14,300 feet, speed 340 knots. Track consistent with a returning strike aircraft from one of the Air Wing's FA-18 elements that launched 3 hours ago. The Lincoln launched 22 aircraft in the evening's strike cycle. 21 have already checked in on the recovery frequency, or are being tracked on known return vectors. The 22nd is overdue by 11 minutes, which is within the administrative tolerance for a strike aircraft that has executed an unplanned divert for fuel or a post-target area maneuvering delay. The green contact at 61 miles is entirely consistent. In every parameter the operator's trained pattern recognition assigns to it, with that 22nd aircraft inbound for recovery. He marks it as a probable recovery contact, assigns it a track number, and passes it to the recovery controller on the departure and arrival frequency for a radio check. There is no response on the arrival frequency. The recovery controller queries twice more over the next 90 seconds. No response. He checks the strike common frequency. No response. He requests a NORDO, no radio, recovery procedure initiation, which routes the contact to the visual landing signal officers on the flight deck with a heads-up that an aircraft may be approaching without communications. Standard procedure. It happens. At 7:26 p.m., the contact is at 49 nautical miles, still inbound, still green, speed now 360 knots. The speed increase is the first parameter that does not fit the expected recovery profile. A strike aircraft on inbound recovery after a 6-hour sortie is typically managing fuel, not accelerating. But the speed increase is within the band of behaviors that a pilot executing an emergency approach, low fuel, partial systems failure, might exhibit, and the contact is green. And green means the system has authenticated it as friendly. The Air Intercept Control Officer on the secondary watch console is the first person in the Combat Direction Center to combine the no radio status, the speed increase, and a third data point that he pulls from the Air Wing's mission status board at 7:27 p.m. The 22nd aircraft, the one that is overdue, checked in on the tanker frequency 14 minutes ago from a position 180 miles to the southwest, where it is currently conducting an emergency fuel top-off following an avionics partial failure that has kept it off the primary strike frequencies. The aircraft at 49 miles is not the missing FA-18. There is no F/A-18 at 49 miles. The green contact at 49 miles is not one of theirs. He calls it at 7:27 p.m., 31 seconds after pulling the mission status board, and the Combat Direction Center's entire focus shifts in the span of 2 words: unknown contact. The IFF interrogation system reprocesses the contact's last 6 replies automatically when the unknown classification is entered. All 6 replies are valid. Mode 5 cryptographic responses matching today's authentication code. The system cannot tell them what the contact is. It can only confirm that the contact has been successfully authenticating as friendly since it first appeared at 7:22 p.m. Someone has today's IFF code. The operational implication of that conclusion, reached simultaneously by 3 people in the Combat Direction Center in the 5 seconds after the AIC officer's call, is not simply that one hostile contact has passed a checkpoint. It is that every contact currently displaying a green symbol on every display in the strike group's air picture is potentially suspect, and that the authentication architecture that the entire formation's air defense decision cycle is built around has been compromised by a code that should not exist outside the classified key management infrastructure of the U.S. military's cryptographic distribution system. The contact is 46 nautical miles out. It is still accelerating. At 370 knots and the current range, the engagement timeline, the window between detection as hostile and weapons away, is compressing at a rate that does not accommodate extended analytical deliberation. The Combat Direction Center watch officer makes the call at 7:28 p.m. Weapons free on the unknown contact, independent of IFF. The F/A-18F Combat Air Patrol Section, currently holding at 31 nautical miles on the northern CAP station, green on the display because their IFF replies are genuine, is redirected to intercept. The CAP lead receives the vector at 7:28 p.m. and pushes his throttles. The intercept geometry puts the CAP lead at visual range of the unknown contact at 7:31 p.m. at a closing geometry of 430 knots combined airspeed, 18 nautical miles from the Lincoln. What he sees through his targeting pod in the first second of acquisition is not a fighter aircraft. It is a twin-boom airframe with a mid-mounted engine nacelle and a wingspan profile that his training recognition memory identifies immediately, and that he transmits to the Combat Direction Center in 6 words: Shahed 149. Repeat, Shahed 149. The IRGC's high-endurance reconnaissance and strike drone, an airframe large enough on the infrared camera to fill the targeting pod's medium zoom field of view, is carrying what appears from the electro-optical image to be a ventral hardpoint with a suspended store of significant size. It is not conducting reconnaissance. It is on an attack heading for the carrier at 370 knots, authenticated as friendly by a cryptographic code it should not possess, and it is 18 nautical miles from the ship. The AIM-120 fires at 7:31 p.m. The intercept is clean. The Shahed 149's debris field falls into the northern Arabian Sea at 7:32 p.m., 16 nautical miles from the Lincoln's bow. Clean in the sense that the contact is removed from the battle space. Not clean in any other sense, because the 62 seconds between the unknown contact call and the weapons release have also revealed, through the emergency reprocessing of the entire formation's air picture, that 3 additional contacts currently displaying green symbols on the strike group's collective display do not correspond to any aircraft in the Air Wing's current operational manifest. 3 more. Same authentication behavior. Same IFF reply validity. Same impossible green designation on a hostile airframe. The engagement of those 3 contacts and the investigation of how the IFF codes were compromised run in parallel from 7:32 p.m. onward. The engagements are resolved in the next 9 minutes. All 3 additional Shahed 149 contacts are intercepted by CAP aircraft at ranges between 22 and 34 nautical miles. None reach the formation. But the resolution of those engagements is only possible because the CAP pilots have visual confirmation protocols that override the IFF green designation once an unknown classification is entered. Protocols that require a visual ID on every contact before weapons employment in a permissive rules of engagement environment, and that function as the last physical backstop between a valid IFF reply and an actual identification. The protocols are written for exactly this contingency. They have never been used in this way before. They work. The investigation into the code compromise begins the moment the 4th intercept is complete, and does not stop until it reaches a conclusion that the 5th Fleet's counterintelligence cell will characterize, in the classified assessment filed 11 days later, as one of the most significant cryptographic access violations recorded against a deployed U.S. Naval Strike Group. Mode 5. IFF codes are generated, distributed, and managed through the U.S. military's communication security key management infrastructure, a system with its own classified architecture, its own physical distribution protocols, and its own access controls that are designed specifically to ensure that valid cryptographic keys for current operational periods do not exist outside the hardware platforms that are supposed to hold them. The keys are loaded into IFF transponders and interrogators through a physical key fill process using certified crypto-loading devices. They are not transmitted electronically. They are not stored in any networked system. They are loaded, used, and then overwritten by the next day's codes through a daily key change cycle. The system's fundamental security assumption is that the keys can only be compromised if a physical key fill device is accessed, a loaded platform's transponder is exploited, or someone within the distribution chain provides the key material to an unauthorized party. The investigation narrows the access window within 14 hours, working backward from the codes the Shahed 149s were carrying against the key distribution chain for the current operational period. The current day's Mode 5 codes were loaded into the strike group's IFF systems at 6 a.m. during the daily key change cycle. The key material originated from the regional COMSEC key management facility at Udeid Air Base in Qatar, was transmitted in encrypted form to the strike group through a classified communications channel, and was loaded into each platform by certified crypto loaders assigned to the Air Wing's communications division. The chain has 12 links between the originating key management facility and the last transponder loaded on the flight deck. The investigation examines every link. The break is found not in the key distribution hardware and not in the transmission chain. It is found in the key management facility itself, specifically in the access log of the software system that generates and packages the daily key material before it enters the transmission chain. The log shows that the current day's key material was accessed, in addition to the authorized generation and packaging functions, by a software query that extracted the key values in a formatted output consistent with a data preparation step for transmission. The query was executed by an administrative account associated with a civilian COMSEC systems technician who has been assigned to the Udeid key management facility for 8 months. The query was executed at 6:47 a.m., 47 minutes after the key material was generated, and 13 minutes before the encrypted transmission to the strike group was initiated. The query's output was not transmitted through any logged channel, but it was generated. The key values were in a formatted output file for 13 minutes before the query's results were deleted from the system's working directory. 13 minutes. The time between a key extraction query and the file's deletion is not, by itself, evidence that the file was transmitted externally. Deletion of working files is a standard housekeeping step in a software environment where sensitive outputs are generated and processed. But the deletion of a file containing the current day's Mode 5 IFF authentication codes, 13 minutes after those codes were extracted in a formatted output, by an account that had no authorized function requiring that extraction, on a day when 4 IRGC drones were carrying those codes. That combination of facts is not a coincidence that the investigation needs to work to explain. It is the explanation. The COMSEC technician is in the facility at 6:47 a.m. when the query is executed. The facility's access logs confirm his presence. The camera coverage of the workstation associated with the administrative account shows the workstation's screensaver active during the relevant 13-minute window, which means either the query was executed remotely through the administrative account's credentials, or the camera's field of view does not cover the lateral portion of the workstation where a secondary input device could have been connected, or the screensaver was activated deliberately to defeat camera observation of the workstation during the query. The facility's security officer, reviewing the camera coverage geometry, identifies a 15-degree blind spot in the camera's lateral field that would allow a secondary device connected to the workstation's USB port to operate without appearing in the camera frame. The blind spot is 11 centimeters wide at the workstation's surface level. It is the width of a USB thumb drive. The technician is interviewed at 3:15 p.m. on the day of the drone engagement. He has been notified of the investigation only in the general terms of a COMSEC incident review and has no indication of how specifically the access log has been traced. His account of his activities at 6:47 a.m. is consistent with his normal work routine. He identifies no anomalous events. He is professionally cooperative. He is placed under discreet surveillance at 4 p.m. without being informed that his account credentials are the center of the investigation. At 6:30 p.m., 23 hours and 43 minutes after the code extraction query, the technician leaves the facility and drives to a commercial district in Doha, where he meets a contact at a restaurant that the surveillance team photographs from a vehicle parked on the adjacent street. The contact is a Qatari national who has appeared twice in Qatari Domestic Intelligence Service, reporting as a person of peripheral interest in connection with a suspected IRGC facilitation network operating in Qatar's commercial sector. The meeting lasts 31 minutes. At 7:04 p.m., the technician returns to his vehicle. At 7:09 p.m., he is detained by a joint team of NCIS agents and Qatari security service officers in the facility's parking structure. He is carrying a personal phone, a wallet, and a USB drive in his jacket pocket. The USB drive has a hardware encryption chip that the NCIS technical team spends 4 hours bypassing. When the drive's contents are accessed at 11:17 p.m., they contain 19 files, each associated with a date in the preceding 3 weeks. Each file is a formatted output of cryptographic key material consistent with the Mode 5 IFF codes for the corresponding date. He has not been providing the codes for 1 day. He has been providing them for 19 days. For 19 days, the IRGC has had the daily IFF authentication codes for every platform in the strike group. For 19 days, any IRGC asset with a Mode 5 transponder loaded with the current day's code has been invisible to the formation's IFF-based threat discrimination, presenting as friendly on every display in the formation. The 4 Shahed 149s launched on March 6th are the first time that access was used kinetically. The investigation cannot determine with certainty whether it was used in other ways during the preceding 19 days. For reconnaissance overflights, for intelligence collection on the formation's geometry and defensive posture, for targeting data development. Because those operations, if they occurred, would have left no trace in the strike group's contact records. A contact that looks green is not logged as an anomaly. It is filed and forgotten. The operational damage assessment produced in the week following the engagement covers 3 categories of potential exploitation during the 19-day window. The first category, kinetic operations, is bounded by the March 6th engagement. 4 drones, 4 intercepts, 0 damage to fleet assets, 1 procedural success in the visual ID override protocol that functioned as designed and prevented the green symbol from becoming a terminal threat. The second category, reconnaissance, is assessed as probable but unquantifiable, given the IFF access's ability to enable overflights that generated no tracking anomalies. The third category, targeting development, is assessed as possible and is the reason that the strike group's patrol geometry, formation spacing, and defensive posture are modified across 5 specific parameters in the 48 hours following the engagement, even though the immediate threat has been neutralized. The daily key change cycle, which resets the Mode 5 codes every 24 hours, limits the window of any single day's compromise to that day's operational period. The technician's 19-day access did not give the IRGC a permanent capability. It gave them a renewable one, a new set of codes each morning, renewed through a channel that was invisible to the key management system's integrity monitoring because it exploited a blind spot in the camera coverage of a single workstation that was 11 centimeters wide. The blind spot has been corrected. The workstation's USB ports are physically blocked. The administrative account's credential architecture has been restructured to require dual-person authentication for any query that accesses formatted key material. The camera coverage of the facility's entire workstation floor has been redesigned to eliminate lateral blind spots at every station. The broader implication recorded in the classified annex of the after-action report concerns the 19-day window's potential use for purposes beyond the March 6th drone engagement. An actor with daily access to a carrier strike group's IFF authentication codes for 19 consecutive days possesses something more granular than a one-time tactical advantage. They possess a detailed, day-by-day picture of which platforms are operating with which IFF loads, information that, cross-referenced against the air wing's sortie tempo and the formation's patrol pattern, allows a sophisticated adversary to build a precise operational model of the strike group's air activity cycle. The IRGC's targeting intelligence during the 19-day window was not limited to what its sensors could observe from outside the formation. It included the authentication architecture of everything moving within it. The operational geometry changes made in the 48 hours after the engagement are a partial mitigation of that analytical penetration. They are not an erasure of it. The classified after-action documentation records the following: 19 days of daily IFF code, access through a single compromised administrative account. 4 Shahed, 149 drones carrying valid Mode 5 authentication codes. 4 intercepts, all within 34 nautical miles of the formation, all resolved through visual ID override procedures. 0 damage to fleet assets. 62 seconds from unknown contact call to weapons release on the first contact. 1 USB drive recovered with 19 days of formatted key material. 1 meeting in a Doha restaurant photographed by a surveillance team that had been in position for less than 3 hours. 1 blind spot, 11 centimeters wide, that was the entire operational surface area of a 19-day intelligence access operation against the most sensitive cryptographic system protecting the air defense of a carrier strike group at war. The IFF system is not a failsafe. It is a probability assessment running at the speed of air traffic, and its output is only as reliable as the key material it authenticates against. When the key material is not exclusively held by the parties it is supposed to authorize, the green symbol on the display is not information. It is a question wearing information's face. The crews who saw the question and asked it again, who pulled the mission status board, who ran the visual ID, who fired on a contact that the system was still calling friendly, answered it correctly. Their procedures were the actual failsafe. The procedures held. The most critical security perimeter in a cryptographic key management facility is not the door and not the network boundary. It is the 11-centimeter camera blind spot at the corner of a workstation that nobody measured until after the codes were gone.